Welcome to the Robotics Through Science Fiction podcast. I'm Robin Murphy, and in this podcast, I'll cover some of the reasons why social robots need facial expression, which is the subject of Jeffrey Ford's short story, The Seventh Expression of the Robot General. The seventh expression of the Robot General is ostensibly a tale of a military robot whose scorched earth policy first wins acclaim, and then over time he becomes viewed as reprehensible. The general is a humanoid robot designed to physically inspire and intimidate troops, and he relies on social communication cues, things like pose, gestures, eye contact, facial expression, prosody, that sort of thing. He's famous for his facial expressions, but at least one of those expressions is inscrutable, and no one knows what it really means, perhaps not even the robot himself. One of the most challenging problems in social robotics is enabling social expressions that do not fall into that uncanny valley. We all know that a robot that looks like a beautiful mannequin has perfect features but has no facial expressions is just creepy. People move their eyes, they give slight nods and smiles, and they provide other cues to coordinate verbal communication. Specifically, they're communicating that they're paying attention, that they are finished speaking, or they would like to speak. People also use facial expressions for referential indicators, like nodding in the direction of the object that you're discussing to reinforce that that is the object that indeed we're talking about. Facial expressions can also express affect or emotional state, such as happiness, anger, or suspicion. Well, if facial expressions are so fundamental, why are they so hard to implement? There are two major reasons. One's hardware-based and the other is software. It is tough to build the actuators that can duplicate facial expressions. According to Wikipedia, there are over 19 different muscles in the face that are used for expressions, and that's a lot of mechanism to build into a robot head. And that's a lot of actuators that you've got to synchronize for smooth and natural movements. But even if a robot has sufficient actuators and controls that are capable of that rapid and subtle changes that we need for naturalistic expressions, the other challenge is when to trigger those movements. If facial expressions are being used to reinforce verbal communication, they have to be coupled with the content of what is being said. Otherwise, the disconnect's like a bad movie. It hurtles the robot into that uncanny valley. A significant line of research in human-robot interaction focuses on how to understand what is being said, not said, in a conversation so that the robot can generate the appropriate facial expressions to reflect what it's trying to communicate and to react to what the conversant is saying. And to do this comprehension and generation in real time, and it has to be in real time because otherwise the time delays are creepy. Well, fortunately, people tend to talk in less complicated ways to robots. And mostly they talk to them to express purpose or intent, tell the robot to do something, which helps reduce the challenges of trying to emulate sophisticated conversational interactions. However, in the seventh expression of the Robot General, the general not only has the facial features of a human, but they've added expressive capabilities, such as going so far as even to change the color of his face to reflect patriotism. So they added 6 basic expressions for the general: righteousness, willfulness, obstinacy, eagerness, grimness 1, and grimness 2. Plus, he has a super secret, inspire soldiers to do whatever I ask expression. While the story seems fanciful, it's accurate in many subtle ways. In a nod to that underlying hardware challenge, his ability to form some expressions is damaged due to injury with the alien space invaders. And like in real conversation, the expressions depend on how the other party interprets them and how they interpret them in context. So expressions that work with soldiers in a war don't necessarily elicit the same responses from civilians in peacetime. But the story really is a hard science fiction work on communication. It's more about the software side of generating social expressions, what the general is thinking, and how he tries to gain some sense of purpose and control over his own life after the end of a brutal war. If it's hard for human warriors to adjust to peacetime, how much more so for robots engineered to be good only for war. I recommend you read the 7th expression of the Robot General or listen to it on the We Robots anthology by Alan Castor, and then watch video clips of David Hanson's robot Sophia. The difference between the Robot General and Sophia is not the sophistication of the actuators, but rather that spark of true self-awareness behind the eyes. And if you want to learn more about the challenges of designing robots with social expressions, pick up Affective Computing by Rosalind Picard. She started the whole idea that we interact socially with technology, or Designing Sociable Robots by Cynthia Brazil. And if you want to learn about robotics in general, check out my new book, Robotics Through Science Fiction, Artificial Intelligence Explained Through 6 Classic Robot Short Stories. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and YouTube channel so you won't miss a thing.